I would even go so far to say that annulments as an issue is like trickle-down theology. It is not the basis, it is the end result of what has happened to the Catholic Church. I think if you see the question in any other way, it will make no sense. And even as sitting in the barber shop on Friday, talking with a non-Catholic, indicating that I would probably be on TV with my new haircut, she who is not Catholic immediately responded when I told her the reason of this debate up in Massachusetts, the annulment question in the Catholic Church. And she is but one example of many non-Catholics who can see in that question a problem which is evident without any theological background other than to know that the Catholic Church doesn't grant divorce. You see, all a person has to know is that the Catholic Church does not recognize divorce and remarriage, and that is what we mean by divorce in this case, a license to remarry as the state gives, which the Catholic Church has always condemned as being against the divine institution of matrimony, even when it is not a sacrament. Although the state does have certain powers in matrimony that is not sacramental, but that is for the theologians. But it is sufficient for someone to know that the Catholic Church opposes divorce and is granting annulments the way they do, that they see an immediate contradiction. The person might not even know the answer to the question, why did God make me? But the person can see the contradiction. And hence there we are, trying, as it were, to justify something which can't be justified. We're trying to work within a contradiction. And it's futile to work within a contradiction. I live in Florida, as I said, where we are now almost one complete month into the hurricane season. I have used an analogy now for several years to my people about why we are doing what we are doing as traditional priests and traditional Catholics. Why we are not in our parish churches. Why we don't go to this new order of the Mass that came into effect under Paul VI in 1969. Why we don't go along with the Vatican II program. And I liken our situation to that of a full-fledged hurricane, which strikes without moment, without notice almost, without warning. What happens during a hurricane? Well, depending on the area hit, how severe it is, we know that things are set up which would be normally illegal. Shelters are set up where food is dispensed, medication is dispensed, shelter is given, things which in normal times would be illegitimate. And yet they are necessary because of the state of the hurricane. Now, if there isn't a hurricane in the Catholic Church, then my analogy just doesn't work. If it's not analogous to a hurricane, then what I'm doing is wrong. Off comes my collar. I suppose I have to live according to the rule of celibacy and the recitation of the breviary by virtue of my priestly office, but that would be it. I would no longer go around and administer to souls that which I believe the Catholic Church commissions me to do, not by canon law, but by emergency permission. What does all this have to do with annulment? Well, my dear brethren, it goes down to this. I call you my brethren, you are of a sort. Brethren in knowledge of the truth and desire for the truth. That the authority which is granting the annulments in the Catholic Church today is the same authority that is trying to promulgate, to foster, and to inculcate that which is not Catholic by way of worship and doctrine. There is the question. If you see that, it will make sense. If you don't see that, the issue of annulment will stand by itself. Do these men have the authority to do what they're doing? From John Paul all the way down to the parish priest where you were baptized and I was baptized. Do they have the authority of Christ and his vicars? I say vicars even in a lesser sense, those who stand in for him. My answer is no, not as long as they promote what is evidently contrary to Catholic doctrine. And on the basis of this, there is, as it were, a blanket refusal to acknowledge that which church law gives by way of presumption, which is the validity of the marriage bond. I'm not saying that there are no problems here. There are probably, in my opinion, more valid cases for annulment today than ever before in the history of the church. And yet, on the other hand, there is no competent tribunal to hear them. Hear what I'm saying? There are probably more people who, due to a lack of certain consent, I'm not speaking of the cases that are evidently absurd, such as brought up by Sheila Rauch Kennedy in her recent book, Shattered Faith, which is a wonderful case history and a very charitably done expose of the annulment process. I'm not talking about the evident ones. I'm talking about those that are more difficult. There are probably a lot of them which are valid in their basis, but there's no judge competent to hear them. And in that case, the church falls back on presumption. Let me just read you as a finale here, from our statement of principles, which 12 of us priests put together in June of 1984. I'll read you just the first paragraph and then that which pertains to marriage annulments. But listen to the introduction, for this is where the issue stands. This is how it starts. The changes following the Second Vatican Council have proven so damaging to the Roman Catholic religion and so detrimental to the sanctification of souls that one can easily discern that, quote, an enemy hath done this, unquote. This council marked the culmination of the first phase of a liberal and modernist intrusion into the Roman Catholic Church, which intrusion had already begun in the 19th century, and to which St. Pius X alerted the Church in his encyclical Pascendi in 1907. Skipping finally to paragraph 20. Since the Second Vatican Council, the modernists have been granting, purportedly in the name of the Church, annulments to married couples for reasons which have no foundation either in the traditional canon law of the Church or in the Roman Catholic doctrine concerning matrimony. We consequently deplore this contempt for the Holy Sacrament of Matrimony commonly found among the modernists operating the diocesan marriage tribunals and the Roman Rota itself. In the practical order, therefore, we refuse to recognize any annulments coming forth from the aforesaid courts unless it can be demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that the marriage bond of the annulled marriage did not exist in the first place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. And now we'll have the second negative constructive.
No problem. Good evening, and I thank you for allowing me to be here and speak to you. My name is Tom White. I'm a Catholic lay person, 53 years old, a widower, and now the father of 2 stepchildren and a remarriage, a new marriage a year ago. I've been a defender of the faith, whether it be on radio, television. I've been involved at the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts. I'm not speaking